Votes. I'm a Suffolk Votes ambassador. Before we start off, I'm going to be co-facilitating this with Elizabeth, but we're going to record everything and have everything like transcribed. So if you don't want to be on camera, like feel free to turn it off, but we would love to have you here. Elizabeth, take it away.
So this is the third workshop of our series that we've been doing for Suffolk Votes this spring called Activism in Action, in which we give students tools and tips on how to become a successful community organizer. So today we will learn tools and kind of understand of what it is to run a social media campaign and how to be an activist using social media as that platform.
Awesome. So I'm gonna go over some like quick housekeeping. Respect, no identifiers. If you're telling stories, like try to not name people, just to like protect their privacy. The Vegas rule, like what happens here stays here in case anyone shares anything like vulnerable, we want to be respectful of that. One person speaks at one time, and be also mindful of other people's time. If you're not participating, participate some more. If you are participating too much and not giving other people chances, give them some chances. Also, for the person who participates the most, we are going to give away a gift card. So, you might want to step that up. And I think we're going to also do gift cards for people who attend like multiple sessions, and we'll promote our next session in the next at the end of the presentation. And lastly, just have fun. We're so excited to have you here. And yeah. So for getting started, we just wanna talk about today. It's gonna be all about social media and social media campaigning. You guys know that social media has been huge in activism, especially since COVID-19. We've seen that with like Black Lives Matter and a lot of different social justice issues that have popped up during the pandemic. So just to get started, I'm gonna leave you guys with a couple of ideas, and then Sajin is going to take it away and go in depth with everything else. So first, as with any campaign, the first thing you want to do is develop your goals and how you want to accomplish that goal. Because if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish, it's going to be really hard to actually get that done. So like make sure you know exactly what you want to do. And then keep in mind your audience while choosing the techniques for outreach. Like if you're trying to reach an older group of people, you might want to use like Facebook. Where you're trying to reach a younger group of people, you might want to use like Instagram or Snapchat and things like that. Infographics, or like if you're calling people. So it's like you have to keep in mind exactly who you want to reach. Also put together a team of organizers and assign roles. It's hard to do everything on your own. So if you have a team, it's going to be a lot more helpful. Do research together, see if there's anyone you can collaborate with, see if other people have done what you want to do, and just to get the most accurate information, because you always want to make sure that you're being accurate. And then prepare to launch your campaign. It takes a lot of preparation. Don't just decide one day I'm going to do this and then start posting. You want to prepare, you want to have like things going, posts ready, and then also build a following. That's also important to make sure that your campaign continues to grow. I'm gonna now pass it over to Sajin. I worked at Vote during last election season, and he's one of my colleagues, and he's gonna kind of walk you through how to do social media. So Sajin, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. I'm really excited to be here. So just to kind of background, I managed the communications team and oversaw social media pages at Vote And Vote is a nonprofit working to register patients to vote in order to improve their social determinants of health. So just for background, our audience was physicians. We were trying to get physicians to register their patients to vote in healthcare spaces. So maybe not the same audience you guys have worked with, but kind of college students and doctors have a lot in common in the sense that they are pressed for time. So I think that that connection can be useful, and you guys might be able to kind of extract some useful tools tonight. So like any tool, social media is a tool first and foremost, and like any tool, it has its pros and cons. And I think knowing how to best use social media as a tool will get you really far. So the pros of social media are it reaches large audiences. If you guys can build a good following, you guys can have a message spread to hundreds of people very quickly. And that's really, really helpful for online campaigns. It also quickly informs followers about what your organization is about. If you do this well, people should be able to click on your profile, scroll for like 3 seconds and really understand what this organization is trying to accomplish. The social media is really good on those fronts. I noticed one of the earlier sessions for this seminar series was it was organizing, and this is to say that social media is really good at big mobilizing, but it doesn't replace organizing in personal talks, personal conversation. You still need to, if you're trying to run a campaign, get out there, share one-on-one and talk to people. Social media just doesn't have the same personability that your voice and your face does. So it's really important that you don't let it completely take over everything you do. You definitely want to have other components of your campaign. So the takeaways, I think, would be to use social media in conjunction with more personal styles of organizing, like coffee chats, and ensure your page clearly represents what you care about. And there'll be more on that in the next slide. Thank you. So this is a screenshot of VoteER's social media page. So in the chat, I guess I would like you guys to kind of note some stylistic points, some content points, and some messaging points. What kind of do you notice right off the bat? What do you notice once you look at it for a few minutes? Just initial thoughts, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. I'm seeing some awesome stuff so far. Awesome, I'll give another 10 seconds. Great. So I'm seeing a lot of great stuff in the chat, and just to call out, I see memes, quotes, large images, a video, so a chart. So yeah, so there's kind of a lot of different ways we're trying to convey messages, but and this isn't a fair point for me to bring up because I didn't give you enough time to really read the page, but if you were to have read everything on the page, you'd notice that a lot of the themes are pretty much the same. We're saying the same few messages in many different ways so that these few messages we want to get across will be understood by a wide variety of audience. If you're a math person, well, maybe this chart up in the top middle, 60% of a person's health is determined by social factors. Well, gee, if I'm a doctor, that's 60% of things that I can't control. I can't control my patient's social factors. Maybe getting them registered to vote is a good idea. We have quotes from people that doctors might find inspirational. The founder of social medicine, a quote from him, Martin Luther King, of course. And to have these quotes kind of relate to our theme of health and civics are very interlinked and need to be considered by doctors. That kind of makes the same point up here. I saw memes, yes. So I was telling Saida and Elizabeth before you guys got on the call that these are doctors, right? Like I was very nervous. I was like, oh, maybe they won't find the jokes funny. They love the memes. They got the most retweets. They got the most likes. They did really, really well. So it's good to kind of lighten it up once in a while. But what you'll notice is it's once again asking people to wear the badge that helps them register their patients to vote. So it's kind of saying one or two ideas, which are you should be registering your patients to vote, and health and their community are interlinked, but it's saying it in many different ways. So I just taking that forward. Saida, do you mind going to the next slide? Thank you. So tips for creating an effective page. Part in this is a little text heavy, but I really wanted it all written down because I think that if you can follow these points, you're off to a really, really strong start with getting a page going. Decide upon 3 to 5 clear messages you want to get across on your page. So these can change as your campaign progresses, but messages should be really simple. Something like encourage doctors to wear their badges, or social determinants of health can be improved by voting. Those are simple things that we can do a lot with. A good rule of thumb is to post each message at least once a week, twice if you have the capacity. Post these messages in different ways to appeal to different audiences. So kind of what we saw on the last page, we use data sometimes, we use stories sometimes, we use videos sometimes, memes or infographics sometimes. So another point was I noticed someone said they noticed the colors. Investing the time to make a brand does add to professionalism. Suffolk Votes page has done a really good job of it, and really can be, you can get really complicated with it. And I was not on the graphics design team, so I'm not the person to ask about it, but it really can be as simple as just choosing colors and fonts that you stick with, just to kind of give it that brought together feel. Another, and maybe the most important point, is messaging should be targeted to your followers. Ask, why does this matter to them? So we know that our audience is doctors. Why does this matter to them? Well, 60% of their job can't be controlled by them. That's why it matters to them. They can change that though by wearing the badge and registering their patients to vote. So every post kind of gets back to that central message of why it matters to them. So I kind of want to practice a little bit. I think a key theme for Suffolk Votes is that voting matters. How can we get the message voting matters across? You guys can do it qualitatively, quantitatively, or infographically. But if you guys could type some ideas in the chat, it can be as detailed or vague as you can possibly think of. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff. I'm seeing a lot of people talk about the mediums they would use to get the message across that voting matters. Do people have ideas on like ways to actually spread that message? I really like one I see talk about how big the percentage of electorates would be if young people if they voted. I think that's really interesting. Sure, shock value. Yeah, there's probably a lot of shocking facts that you could find about voting. Start with something eye-catching, yeah. Quotes from popular people, celebrities, sure. Personal story, yep. and I'll add something to that. There's data that shows that kind of showing faces in social media posts and sharing stories is really effective. So I'm really glad that got brought up. Appealing to credibility, no doubt. Appealing to emotion, sure. Interactive voter bingo. I've never heard of that. Elizabeth, do you want to say more on that?
It's, or like, it doesn't have to be voter, but for like any issue, and then you make like an Instagram story of like basically a bingo thing, and you have people check off, like, and it can be for donations. So like, if you donated and you get 5 people to donate, it's bingo. Or if like, oh, like I voted, I registered, that's bingo. Or you can apply it to anything.
Awesome. Yes, I have seen those on stories. Yep, that's an awesome idea. And that's something I didn't talk about, but yeah, like using like Instagram stories to spread content and to do interactive activities is definitely a good tool to use. Once again, know your audience. Adults use their stories, I think, less than our age group does. So we didn't have too much success, but I think that could be really useful for college students potentially. You said you played last year, Saida. So yeah. Great, I'll give like another 10 seconds if anyone has any ideas. Yeah, infographics for sure. People love infographics. Sweet. Saida, did you want to move to the next slide? So these were posts that I just kind of grabbed from the Suffolk Votes page that I thought did a really great job. So the video, once again, it told the stories and explained, it kind of asked people like, why are you going to vote? And people would give the reason or the issue that they really cared about that brought them to the ballot box. So I thought that was really persuasive. For those who are more quantitatively minded, I thought this was really interesting. Since the 2016 election, more than 15 million young people turned 18 and are newly eligible voters. That was mentioned in the chat. Talk about young people voting. And then the infographics, of course. I thought this was a really interesting infographic. Top issues for youth voters in the 2020 election. Credible source at the bottom, tough circle. And kind of just clearly shows like issues that are on the ballot that you can influence. So yeah, you guys kind of nailed that activity. Actually, you guys listed all those things, but that's exactly it. I just wanted to kind of get the point across, and you guys, I think, really got it. Is that you can make so many different messages with just one central message. So many different posts that explain it so many different ways for one message. And I think having few messages and then explaining it many ways is the best way to run a social media campaign. Sorry, did you mind moving to the next slide? Great, so some tips to take away are to have a clear goal and vision. Have those few messages that you wanna get across. Get organized. Know what the messages you're gonna try to have are, and then how you want to get them across. Know what's going on in the news, and have people on your team constantly searching for ways to connect your message to the daily routine and the lives of the people you're trying to target. Put teams together. Yeah, social media is not a one-person job. There are so many things that go into making even one post. So it's important to have teams, people who know how to do the graphics, people who know how to do the messaging. Plan out future steps. That kind of goes out along with the messaging. Once again, just know what the message you're going to try to get across, like break it into increments, maybe each month of a campaign, or if your campaign is more long-term, maybe each 6 months. But it's always good to know what you're doing and then what you plan on doing in the future. Post consistently, and then interact and engage with followers are just some last minute tips to take away. Thank you guys so much. I tried to keep it short because I wanted to save a lot of time for questions. So yeah.
I will start with the questions because as like doing Suffolk Votes social media, this was very interesting to hear all these tips. But one question that I have is, how do you expand your base? Like, it's one thing to produce content, but how do you get people to engage with that content? And, it's not just followers, it's more about content interaction and liking and then like visiting your page. And, it's one thing to see a post, but then to, act on it. So how do you get followers and viewers to then like act on what you're posting?
Yeah. So I think credibility and getting people to engage is something that kind of happens over time. You need to have the base of posts for people to see, oh, this is a legit site, like this is worth engaging with, this is worth following, before people do follow. And then when you do have events, pubbing your social media, pubbing, and go follow us at Suffolk Votes. So kind of just getting out the message as much as you can, because honestly, the thing is, even once you do have a lot of followers, the engagement rate for social media isn't always high. Sometimes you are in the low percentages. That's just the nature of social media. But as you get more followers, the small percentage will just become a bigger number. But yeah, no, that is one of the key issues of social media, is how do you get engagement up? And up is relative. It's you're not going to get 50-60% engagement. That's just sometimes 10% is good, sometimes a lot lower. So I think kind of knowing what to expect is also important.
I can go with the next question. So can you tell us a little bit more about how like you as like a kind of college student got, to be part of like the comms team or like become the director of it?
Yeah. So I work. I'm in an organization called GAMI, Global Alliance for Medical Innovation, which works to make medical devices and healthcare more accessible to those who need it. So there's an advocacy branch, which is the part that I do, and we work to improve healthcare policy and improve healthcare, how it's delivered basically in this country. So I met Dr. Alistair Martin through Global Alliance of Medical Innovation, who is the founder of VoteER, and through that connection, I became the communications manager and ran the social media page. It was new to me. The most important thing is just to know your messaging. The rest falls into place if you know what you're trying to get across.
Going off of that, I definitely agree. Like, social media is one of those things where it may at first seem foreign, of like, oh my gosh, how do I do this? But, with practice, you kind of understand, like, once you learn how to make the post, and then it's more of just, it comes to you, you get more used to the messaging, you get more used to the timing and the interactive. So it really is like, don't be afraid to start it, just start it and grow it from there.
100%. So the screenshot I showed you guys a few slides ago of what the VoteER page looked like is not always what it looked like. There were some times when the posts were ugly, we didn't have a brand yet, but it really is about just starting, trying, and seeing what gets likes, what doesn't get likes, what gets a lot of interactions. It really is trial and error. Yeah, just try things. Not everything's going to work. So long as you're not offensive, really most things are recoverable from. If a meme doesn't go well, you learn from it. I think the biggest thing is to just try things.
I have a question, Sajan. I think a lot of people, if not everybody on this call, have personal social media accounts, right? So like, what kinds of things, what makes this different than how you would run your personal accounts? Like, what are some key things?
Absolutely. So, I mean, some people are definitely maybe more put together than I am, but I Sudgeon don't have a brand. I don't have, when I'm posting a picture, I haven't posted anything because we're in quarantine. But if I were to post a picture, I'm not thinking, how does this relate to the essence of who is Sudgeon? Whereas every post you're making for an organization should be, how does this relate to the essence, to the central message of the organization? I think there's a question in the chat. How do you keep track of what posts to make? That's a good question. Yeah, there's actually a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. So the ways our team worked is we had some graphic designers and some content researchers and kind of forgers of the messengers, those who made the messaging and then those who did the graphics. So we essentially had by Friday, all of the posts were going to be loaded into a Google Doc that we made, essentially, that had a block for each day. And then we would kind of have all the posts ready 1 week beforehand. And we would try to have the researchers pass off their research for the graphic designers to start designing by Wednesday. So it was a very kind of like a scheduled process where the first 2 days of the Monday through Tuesday, we'd do some research. Wednesday through Friday, the graphic design team would make the posts, and then they'd put it in the Google Doc, and then I would give it one last look over, and then we'd post it throughout the week.
I just want to jump in on that second part. I know it's really good to have a plan, because if you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to post, you always have it there for you. And especially if you're doing anything that has a timeline or a deadline. I know with like Suffolk Votes, it's, you know, oh, the registration date is X. What do we need to post before then? Or, you know, what do we want to have by election day? And then kind of working to set up your content like that is a really good idea to keep it organized.
Yes, that's a great question. Does the company share directly interact with others on social media, or only share content? Yeah, so VoteR's main product, as I mentioned earlier, is a badge with a QR code, and patients can scan that QR code, which will then take them to register to vote. So we love it when doctors take selfies of themselves with their badge, and we'll either post it ourselves, or we'll comment, retweet, like the content of people using our badge backer. So yes, it's really important, if you can, to interact with others. And if people are kind of like doing something that you want them to be doing, or at an event that you organize, and you definitely want to give them props for that. Is there a set schedule for posts and such? Yeah, so that's going to depend, I would say, on I guess your organization and the speed it's working at. So VoteR posted a whole lot more running up to the presidential election, because there was obviously a lot more hype going on with registering to vote. On an off year, we're still posting, but less frequently. So it's going to kind of depend on what the urgency of your campaign is, and that's probably going to fluctuate as time changes, especially with voting issues. So my advice is, like I said, I would try to get each message across at least once a week. So you have those 3 to 5 messages that you're trying to spread. Get each one posted once a week. But if you're doing that, I think you're hitting a good minimum. How do you decide which form of outreach to utilize first? Yeah, that's a great question. How do you decide which form of outreach to utilize first? Truth is, it doesn't really matter as long as you're hitting all. If something comes to you, then just go with it. Yeah, the order doesn't necessarily matter. If you kind of like see a cool quote, and you're like, oh, I just had a qualitative. It's okay to do 2 qualitatives in a row. Just make sure you're mixing in some other ways to reach people too, and that you're not only doing qualitative, but there really is no exact science to it. Um, the best thing to do is, like I said, feel out what does well, what gets likes, and then kind of go from there. Is it difficult to run the account? There are definitely difficult parts of it. I'd say the difficult part is the original, like the starting up, when you're like, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to create messaging. That's the hardest part. Once you get going, it like everything else is something you can learn and get really good at. Um, yeah, I'd say the hardest part though is like figuring out what you want your messaging to be. It should be easy to say what you want to do in a few words, but it really isn't all the time. So that's the hardest part, but it's also the part that gets easier as you keep going. That's a great question. So how do we stay creative during the off season? So I don't know if this has been covered in this seminar series, but organizing as a whole, I think, can be broken down into two categories. The mobilizing, which is getting people to do what you want them to do, which is to get them registering patients to vote, and then the organizing, which is kind of building up people's capacity and doing the relationship building and all this stuff that gets people to stay involved in a relationship with an organization. So 2021 for us has been a big year for organizing. We're starting a fellowship a civic health fellowship that doctors can come to and learn about the connection between social determinants of health, voting, and what they can do as a physician to better the situation. So we're kind of, we've changed our messaging a lot since 2020. We still care about the same things. Our mission is still the same, but our messaging is less register your patients to vote and more get this to be a norm in your hospital or in your clinic, and get really people on board with it, so that come the next election, we'll be ready. That's a really good question. And yeah, so seeing that shift is really important. As a voting organization, you're not always going to be mobilizing. Sometimes you're going to be organizing and trying to just build capacity. Type of analytics. What type of analytics are available to measure how effective your messaging is? That's a great question. So Instagram, there isn't anything great, to be honest. Twitter, though, there's Twitter Analytics, which is really, really great. It shows you how many impressions you're getting, how many tweets, likes you're getting, how many retweets you're getting, and it shows you your trajectory from last month, and compares you to like your previous months. It's really, really great. And if your organization, which I recommend it does, cross posts Instagram and Twitter posts, you can kind of get an idea on Instagram what's going to be popular. How do you build a brand? Yeah, so that's a great question. I think it all starts with the central message, the idea you want to get across. And then if you have that strong, it's really a lot easier to branch out. It's a lot easier to put the colors together and put the fonts together and make it look nice. The hardest part is figuring out, what do I want people to kind of learn from this post? What message do I want to get across, and how do I connect it to them? That's the biggest part about branding. Do you find using hashtag really spreads the message more? If so, how do you choose which hashtags to use, since there are so many in general? Yeah. So as a medical organization, we used hashtag MedTwitter a lot, which is a big kind of hashtag for the medical community. That was the one we used the most because it does have so much traffic. But yeah, I think kind of finding 1 or 2 hashtags that might link you to some communities you want your content to be seen by is useful. I don't think it's make or break, but I think, yeah, figuring out which the hashtags that do kind of share your values and share your content, linking to that is a good idea. Is there a good template or framework to how to communicate your message? Yeah, so I guess I think social media can be thought of a lot like the personal narrative. So think about like what you want to change, and then how to connect that to other people. I think figuring out your message and then connecting it to other people is the key framework to getting posts. I don't know if that answers your question, James, and if it doesn't, let me know. Yeah, but I think that's the advice I would give. Do you find social media all consuming? Do you feel advice to stay balanced? Yeah, that's a great question. So I would find social media all consuming if I didn't have an awesome team that I worked with. Thankfully, my job is to think about messaging I want for the week. And then I have people who do the research, and then there are people who do the graphics. So it really is a team effort. We scaled up quickly at VoteER, and there was one person who only one person at one point who was doing the entire social media, and they were doing a great job. But like when they became one member of a team of 5, it became so much better because they were able to focus their energy on less and do more with it. So I really do recommend having a team so that you don't get too consumed. Advice to stay balanced. Yeah, so I think kind of knowing what you're going to post ahead of time, it can be consuming if you're making posts for the night before. But if you kind of stay ahead of time, I think it's easier to kind of stay on top of things. How important is it to post consistently? Yeah, I think it's important to post consistently, but consistently means different things at different times for different organizations. So, I mean, when we were really ramping up for the election, I mean, it was once, twice a day. Now maybe it's once every 2 days for VoteER, because there is less urgency with our messaging right now. But yeah, I think you don't want to just post like once a month, because then people will forget about you. But, and this is assuming like this is like not for an organization, this is for a campaign that's going on. If there really is a campaign with an end date, then yeah, you do want to be posting consistently. How do you make sure your post-less messages are clear enough without becoming too repetitive? Yeah. So I think there's 2 points to this. One is making sure you do have the team, passing it through a lot of eyes. Someone will say something if it doesn't look right. But if you're the one making it and proofreading it, it can get hard to kind of discern if the messaging is clear or not. The other thing is to think about how you can say those few messages in different ways. So I think this group was able to figure out 5 ways to say the same message qualitatively, quantitatively, with charts, with videos, with quotes, with stories, with, I mean, that's 6 ways right there to say one message. And you really only need to say that what message, like maybe like once, twice a week. So yeah, there's I think a lot of ways to get messages across without seeming too repetitive. And that would be to just do different things. Social media made a positive impact on your organization? Yeah, that's a great question. It's made a positive impact on our organization because if you go back to that slide that said social media as a tool, what are its pros, what are its cons, what are its takeaways? So the pros were it can reach large audiences quickly and can get people to understand what you do quickly. So it has not in the least supplemented us talking with doctors and organizing doctors and having those in-person conversations, but it has allowed us to reach large audiences and to kind of spread messages to the people who we had organized. Which social media platform do you find works best at spreading your message? Is there a big gap between some compared to others? We used Twitter and Instagram the most. And we didn't find there to be too big of a gap. I think we have slightly more followers on Instagram than we do Twitter. But I think just mainstream platforms are the way to go, because at the end of the day, you are targeting normal people. They are doctors, they are students, but they're also just normal people who are going to be on Twitter. I think you can try LinkedIn and stuff, but I think people like use like Instagram and Twitter more, and I think that's where you're going to catch a lot of people. What have been your favorite interactions with people on social media? Great question. We've a tactic that I haven't mentioned tonight, which is really fun, is something called a Twitter storm, which is basically getting a whole bunch of people to tweet the same thing at one person at the same time. And we were able to get, I forget who the celebrity was. I'm really bad with actors and actresses, but they were from Grey's Anatomy. And we were able to get them to take a picture with their Healthy Democracy kit. We sent one to them, and they took a picture of it, and we retweeted it. So that was kind of cool. Never underestimate what the power of even like getting 20, 30, 40 people to tweet the same thing at someone at a time can do. It can be annoying, but it can also get results if you only do it once in a while. So something I hadn't mentioned, but I'm glad you brought up. Have you ever had to deal with negative interactions? How do you deal with those? Yeah, I mean, definitely. When stuff gets out there, there's always going to be negative feedback. I think the most negative stuff we got would probably have been, we got a lot of positive stuff too, but one of our biggest things that happened was we got a piece in the New York Times, and there was plenty of, oh wow, this is great, but there was also plenty of, these liberals are trying to like take advantage, and this is nonpartisan, like nonpartisan. This is we're just registering people to vote. So there definitely were interactions that were not true, not accurate. There was stuff like, oh, if I was there was all sorts of stuff, and you got to just decide what you want, what's worth interacting with. If there's a teachable moment you can make out of it, then go for it. If you can kind of respond to someone by saying, well, actually, and then teach them something, and then kind of like link it back to your brand, then that's awesome. But if it's just kind of nonsense and people who kind of just want drama, let it go. There's always going to be those people. They're not worth your time.
All right, so that looks like that's all we have for questions right now, but thank you for everyone for asking questions. I think it was really great. I know I learned a lot from someone with very little social media experience to running a social media campaign, so this was very helpful and some really great takeaways. If everyone can put their emails in the chat, and we'll contact those who participated about winning a gift card because everyone was great and participated. So we will be awarding that. Also, this is about social media. So where would I be if I did not plug our own social media? Please follow Suffolk Votes. Like we said, interact with the content, like it, share it, all that. And yeah, that would be really great. And we'll be posting more of our events. We have an event next week. Yeah, thank you. So next week we will be taking, after you use social media and you get more interactions and, you're building a follower, how do you then translate that to actual organization? How do you get people together? If it's an issue where you need to contact a legislator, or if it's a campaign and you need to call voters, how do you do that? So it's how to organize. We'll be talking about phone banking, text banking, how to run all that. So please join us next Tuesday at 7. Same rules apply. If you come and participate, you will win a gift card. Also, we will, at the end of our series, whoever comes to more than one will also win a prize there as well. So thank you, everyone. That is it for tonight, but thank you again.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye, thank you. Thank you.